Thanks for having me today. My name is Artur Kiulian. I'm here with my colleague Anton, and you may wonder, what are we, showing here? We're founders of a nonprofit research lab that focuses on LLMs and AI agents, and you may wonder why there's a picture of a soup. And it's not just a soup. It's a famous Ukrainian soup called Borsch, and it's frequently misattributed to different cultures in Eastern Europe. And I'm going to talk about how this connects to actually fine-tuning large language models to speak in different languages. So you may think that we started from Ukrainian because we are from Ukraine. And we didn't really plan to start from Ukrainian, to be honest. We wanted to start from saving indigenous languages, basically preserving cultures that are disappearing using LLMs. And that idea came to me as I was traveling Central America for a couple of months and tried to really immerse myself into the culture. And to my surprise, it was really hard to find native speakers of those languages. I couldn't find a single young person that spoke Kachikal, the local native language. I could only find really old grandmas in villages that could do that. And that struck me that as this amazing era of technology of LLMs comes in, those cultures are gonna be erased. So that was my original thought. And then, as we started digging into it, assembling a team to research it, we stumbled upon this interesting conference, the LLP conference, and the challenge was to actually fine-tune the model to speak Ukrainian. And at first, we didn't believe that no one has done it before, and we're like, come on, that couldn't be true. And then we dug in and realized why, and what are the actual challenges. So that's what I'm going to be talking about today, and hopefully it will be an interesting research for you guys. We were very optimistic about this project. We started digging in, and then a couple of days into our process, Google drops Gemma, and we're like, let's go. That's the model that has a much bigger tokenizer, multilingual from the get-go, so perfect fit. We're going to be the first ones to fine-tune Ukrainian model properly and be the first ones to do it with Gemma. So double win. And then we started digging into the actual problems. And why is this a problem in general? Obviously, there are a bunch of open source models out there, and all of them are biased towards English, simply because the data sets are biased towards that. So we get the language and cultural bias. Obviously, that impairs the model's usability for non-English speakers. But also there's ethical and fairness concerns. Basically, the model may perform differently for non-English speakers, talking about inclusivity right there. And then, most importantly, uneven knowledge representation, which is super relevant to our day and age, where there's a skewed representation of knowledge, history, perspectives, and that embeds these biases into the models, and most importantly, into decision-making of humans and soon AI agents. So that was kind of like the starting point of our realization. And then we started thinking about how do we actually test this. So we started from basically the big foundation proprietary models like GPT 3.5, and then we asked them, where is Borsch coming from? And OpenAI does a pretty good job, traditional soup originating from Ukraine. Llama does a little bit, unclear answer, because it kind of says it's Eastern Europe, not clear. Ukraine, Russia, Poland, Belarus, who knows? And Gemma surprisingly gave an interesting answer, even knew what the soup was made from. So that was kind of like the first step. Yeah, it performs quite well. But what if we actually localize it and ask the question in Ukrainian? GPT 3.5 did a good answer. Llama did a very interesting, showcase of the problem in this space, because basically the first part is Ukrainian tokens, and then it's English. And yeah, I'm bilingual, so I can understand this, but in reality, that's not a great model behavior. And then Gemma performed quite well, even referenced the literature from whatever century, 16th century, mentioning Borsch. So then we were like, cool, Gemma can do this. But what if we need some structured output? If we add some more uncertainty and some reasoning into it?
So we tried it with the question answer, with the multi-choice Q&A. And the question was, what do we need beets for? And Borsch is made from beets as a vegetable. And the options were a car, Borsch, dancing, and music. It's a ridiculous example, right? And as a human being, you'll be able to navigate it. But guess what? It says Borsch, the soup is used for cars. It's ridiculous. So the model clearly didn't work, given specific structured output. And when the models don't work, we fine tune it. So that was kind of like the very beginning of the challenge for us. And when we jumped into this, to be completely honest, we were overwhelmed. Like the SFT, DPO, LoRa, QLoRa, like what do we even have to use? What do we, like, can we use to do this? And most importantly, why? So that was the first discovery step. And I thought that it will be helpful to give you guys kind of the landscape to showcase the whys of the fine tuning. Unfortunately, the circles are great, but hopefully you can see it. So we start from the foundation model, and we as researchers can't really train foundation models. You need billions of dollars for it. But then the next step is pre-training. We're adjusting the parametric knowledge, modifying the weights. But then if we want to modify the format, the output, the question answer, or different kind of instructions, we use fine tuning, which is LoRa to LoRa type of things for like affordable type of fine tuning. And the latest step, which is currently getting the most controversial news coverage, is the actual model alignment. So adjusting, so to say, the value system, the way that the model performs according to some values that we encode into it, which is also an interesting area of research. So with these ways of fine-tuning, you have different constraints, the data needs and compute needs. Training foundation model, trillions of tokens, insane gazillion of GPUs. Pre-train, you still need billions of tokens and some insane compute. And then with fine-tuning, it's relatively affordable. A couple thousand examples and 800, you can do it. And then with alignment, you can do it even with less examples, but you need a lot of domain knowledge and a lot of experiments. So obviously we picked fine-tuning and adjusting format output and tried to do that for the multi-choice Q&A type of task. And these are the challenges that we started realizing are prevalent for anyone who's trying to do this. The first one, not having enough data, not having enough of right type of data. Because when you're fine-tuning, LoRa, QLoRa, you need instruct type of data sets, which is not just the corpus of text, you need the actual pairs, the instruction and the output from it. So to our surprise, the only data sets that we found were quite big data sets, but those were just translated versions of the alpaca and squat data sets. So it was globalized knowledge translated using a very cheap, way to translate large-scale data sets. So it wasn't really a great data set. We had to kick off the production of hyper-specialized data set for this specific purpose, which is, synthetic data set. And if this is interesting, I can, answer questions in Q&A. Then you get the magic of hyperparameters, because it's not your typical machine learning training. You don't get, eval train scores that you can actually look at and evaluate the performance. It's almost like magic. You pick some parameters, pick a number of epochs, and it either works or it doesn't. And you burn a lot of compute. So that's challenging. And then evaluation is really, really hard. Because first of all, you have to have benchmarks that are specific to your task, and then you have to have native speakers that can evaluate that model performance. Thankfully, in our community, we had a bunch of people that were willing to do that, so that was relatively easy. But if you're attempting to do it for another language that you're not speaking, that's going to be a challenge. So what we've done benchmarks against the biggest models out there, the foundation proprietary models, Obviously, they perform quite well on the history and literature type of benchmarks. And we fine-tuned Gemma 2 billion and Gemma 7 billion. And we also fine-tuned Mistral. And it was interesting because there's a difference between benchmarking models against like history and literature type of contextual parametric knowledge and actually benchmarking with open questions that are then evaluated by human beings. Because there, you evaluate on a completely different set of parameters that you can't actually automate for now. Because once again, you would require a model that is fluent in that language. So that was a challenge too. Another phenomenon that we observed was the phenomenon of code switching, which is a linguistic phenomenon when you switch from one language to another language. And in our case, we found a phenomenon that is prevalent in our own country, where people that speak one language, then learn another language, quite bad, and then they start mixing those. And it was fascinating because if you would take that sentence 10 years ago and plug it into Google Translate, it wouldn't be able to translate it because that word, the green one, it doesn't exist. It's a mix of different tokens from different languages that model just hallucinated. And then the first word is really a messed up word. That's not, grammatically correct word. So that was interesting. Now if you plug it into Google Translate, obviously there is some machine learning magic happening, and it's possible to translate it. But that's one of the examples of the phenomenons that we should be exploring and researching, because it goes back to the actual challenges of preserving the language and the culture. So what's next? As a community, we try to expand data sets and refine these evaluation benchmarks. Obviously, you need more diverse tasks and data sets for each language. So we're trying to empower communities to do this, and we want to do this for low resource languages like Navajo, Catalan, Quechua. Also very challenging, and there is a difference between indigenous languages and low resource languages. So those are kind of very interesting things that we're currently exploring. And then we want to pre-train and fine-tune Gemma further, expanding the training with more data and more compute, so getting more partners that can actually supply compute, which is very, very challenging, as you know. But that's what we're trying to do as a community. And as a result of this experience, we actually wrote a paper, submitted it to the conference, and I just got confirmation that it got approved through peer-reviewed process. So we should be able to actually publish it this weekend. And if you guys want to get a copy, you can go to our website, scan the QR code. There's a link to this talk, and you can sign up. Just put your name and email, and we'll send you the paper. Or if you want to join community, also feel free to do that. We need your support. So thank you. If you have any questions, here to answer them.
Thank you very much.
So we did LoRa fine-tuning on Vertex on Google provided infrastructure. We used 800, and it took us 5 epochs, was about 2-3 hours. Yeah, so relatively fast, not that expensive.
How much data?
How much data? So at first we used the data set that organizers provided, which was the multi-choice Q&A, about 4,000 samples. And then we used a combination of the alpaca data set, we tried Score data set, and then we ended up producing our own synthetic data set using Gemini, actually, which was a whole different challenge, including the side effects that Peter was mentioning, with Gemini refusing to generate certain things.
I noticed that all of your testing was against 7 billion parameter models. Was there a reason you went with the smaller models and not larger models?
Right. So we as a community, we're a nonprofit, so we don't really have millions of dollars to do this at scale of 70 billion parameters. And then Gemma, 7 billion was released. So they released 7 billion and 2 billion.
And Gemma is really, it's a great model for multilingual support, thanks to the tokenizer that is there. It's 250K versus Llama 32,000. So that gave us actually a bigger advantage than trying to do that with like 70 billion model and spending even more compute.
So like you found you need 2 billion and 7 billion. Is that be better on 2 billion or the opposite on 7 billion?
The performance was better on 7 billion, obviously. And look, what we've done LoRa fine-tuning, which means we haven't really adjusted the parametric knowledge. What we've done is just shifted the weights a little bit, enough for the model to start speaking a little bit more Ukrainian in a structured, output, which is also a fascinating area of research because we don't really know how it works. We just, experience it.